Have you ever wondered what the most expensive light bulb in history actually cost? It wasn't money. It wasn't even a bulb at first. It was the price of thousands of attempts, each one ending in smoke and disappointment. Thomas Edison tried filament after filament until his lab was littered with experiments that failed. Each one burned out. Each one looked like proof he was wrong. But he didn't call them failures. He called them discoveries of what didn't work. Every no moved him closer to a single bright yes. Imagine standing in that lab, watching the latest attempt flare and die. Investors whisper. Colleagues shake their heads. The world says you're wasting time. Imagine the fear. Not because Edison wasn't brave. He was terrified every step of the way. What kept him going wasn't a lack of fear. It was the knowledge that stopping would freeze every possibility he hadn't yet tested. Mistakes weren't the end. They were the only path to an invention that changed nights forever. History is full of people who looked like failures before the world called them geniuses. The Wright Brothers crashed over 100 times before flight became real. Rowling collected a dozen rejections before Harry Potter opened the imagination of millions. Steve Jobs was pushed out of the company he founded and returned years later to reshape technology. These are not fairy tales. They are blueprints for resilience. Test, fail, learn, adjust, continue. Most people treat failure as a verdict. They believe a mistake defines them permanently. But that's not how discovery works. Failure is a detour. It forces you to reconsider assumptions, to rethink plans, to test new variables. That mistake you replay in your head could be the exact clue you need to redesign your approach. When you mess up, you narrow down the field of what could work. You remove noise until a clearer path appears. Why does failure hurt so much? Because your brain is wired to treat mistakes like danger. Evolution prioritized survival over experimentation. When something goes wrong, your nervous system floods you with stress hormones. Your mind slides into a protective mode that says withdraw, hide, avoid. That reaction is immediate and loud. It brings forward every old doubt you've ever carried, every voice that said you weren't good enough. The mistake becomes a magnifying mirror for your insecurities, and suddenly you feel smaller than you did 5 minutes ago. Society makes this worse. We are shown polished success stories on screens everywhere, overnight triumphs, flawless achievements, while the messy trial and error that got people there is edited away. So we compare our messy practice to someone else's highlight reel and feel ashamed. We learn to hide our scars. We learn to pretend we never stumbled. That only slows learning. Hiding the fall prevents the recovery. The real currency in growth is transparency. When you show the fall, you make room for repair. Shift the frame. See mistakes as feedback, not identity. Edison didn't fail 10,000 times. He documented what didn't work and used it as data. The Wright brothers didn't despair each time their plane fell. They adjusted angles, tested wind, tried again. J.K. Rowling didn't stop because one publisher said, no, bow. She kept refining until the right door opened. The difference between people who stop and people who succeed is not talent alone. It's how they respond to being wrong. There are practical ways to convert a stumble into momentum. The first step is to pause and label the emotion. Say to yourself, quietly and clearly, this is disappointment. This is frustration. This is temporary. That pause interrupts the autopilot of shame and gives your rational mind a chance to think. The second step is to record what happened. Write down in 3 sentences what happened, what assumption I made, what I learned. Turning the event into notes turns emotion into data. The third step is to adapt. Pick one small, measurable action you will take next. Break it into 3 mini checkpoints and schedule them. Small changes compound. Micro adjustments applied consistently create real transformation. Let me guide you through a simple exercise. Grab a pen, close your eyes for a second, and bring to mind the last mistake that left you feeling like a mess. Hold it for a breath. Now open your eyes and write 3 things. What happened in 1 sentence? What you learned in 1 sentence? 1 specific action you will take today to move forward in 1 sentence. If you missed a deadline because you underestimated time, your action might be: break the next task into 2 45-minute focus sessions with a 50% buffer. If you lost trust because of miscommunication, your action might be: draft a clarifying email and ask for a 10-minute call to align expectations. That small deliberate step transforms guilt into purpose. When you do this consistently, mistakes stop being catastrophes and start being road signs. Each misstep gives you a sharper map of the territory you're navigating. You begin to see patterns where you overcommit, where you avoid conflict, where you rush. Those patterns are not indictments. They are information. Use them. Build a simple mistake to insight list. For each entry, identify the learning and the corrective step. Review it weekly. That record becomes proof of progress. Over time, you'll see how the same old mistakes shrink as your choices change. Emotional resilience matters more than raw skill because skill can be learned, but resilience must be practiced. Feeling angry or embarrassed after a mistake is normal. Don't suppress those feelings. Their energy can power change. Sit with the discomfort, name it, and then ask the practical questions. What specifically went wrong? Which assumptions failed? What is one thing I will change next? That sequence, feel, name, analyze, act, builds grit. Grit is not stubbornness. It is adaptive persistence, the willingness to change course without giving up on the destination. Vulnerability accelerates growth. When you admit your mistakes, you allow others to help, to empathize, to offer perspectives that you can't see alone. Sharing your story is not a sign of weakness. It is a bridge. When Malala refused to be silenced, she transformed her suffering into a cause that rallied millions. You do not have to suffer on that scale to see the same principle at work. When you speak openly about a mistake, you reduce its power to isolate you. You create connection and you invite feedback. That feedback is the raw material for improvement. There is a subtle but profound distinction between perfection and excellence. Perfection is an unattainable static state. Excellence is a moving target you chase by refining your process. Perfection stops experiments. Excellence invites them. If you treat each attempt as an experiment with an unknown outcome, you remove personal blame from the equation. Failures become measurements. You learn faster, and you iterate toward mastery. Remember the people who seem to get lucky. They failed more publicly than others. Their luck was the result of trials that the rest of us did not see. Edison's thousands of useless filaments were the cost of the one filament that worked. The Wright's crashes were the tuition for flight. Rowling's stack of rejections bought the perseverance that produced a global phenomenon. The lesson is not that failure guarantees success. The lesson is that without trying enough times, success is impossible. So change the story you tell yourself. Instead of saying, I am a failure, say, I made a mistake and I learned something. Instead of pausing progress to prove yourself perfect, keep moving and use each misstep as a compass. Cultivate curiosity when things go wrong. Ask what the failure is teaching you, not what it proves about you. Curiosity opens a hypothesis-driven approach. Test, observe, adjust. That approach is what scientists, inventors, and creators use when they face uncertainty. Your mistakes are not stains on your record. They are signatures of a life in progress. Every wrong turn means you tried something ambitious enough to risk being wrong. That willingness to risk is courage. Courage is rarer and more valuable than talent, because courage forces you to stand in the arena despite the possibility of losing. The world needs people who are willing to be imperfect in pursuit of progress. Need perfect people. Meaning, it needs brave ones who can rise, learn, and continue. If this message landed with you, do one small thing now. Write down one mistake from the past month. Note the single most useful insight you extracted from it. Commit to one action you will take before the week ends to apply that insight. Keep that note where you will see it. Let it be a reminder that your growth is a collection of small recoveries, not sporadic triumphs. I explore this idea more deeply in my book. If you can imagine it, you can make it. A guide to discover yourself. It walks through specific exercises to reframe setbacks, build resilience, and turn mistakes into momentum. If this episode helped you, like, subscribe, and leave one lesson you learned from failure in the comments. Your story could be the exact nudge someone else needs today. You are not defined by what went wrong. You are defined by how you respond. Every error is a hidden gift. Every stumble is a teacher telling you what to do. Learn faster, build better. Your next failure might be the first real step towards something extraordinary.